that's grown so much as well, right?
Yeah.
Because you have these matchups and you have different fighting styles and, you know, what is this matchup like, right?
What's the best style of pulling for Brian Shaw? Guys, just recently, I was looking back at some of Brian Shaw's practice pulls on the table, and you know, something very noticeable on the sport is the fact that everybody seemed to have chosen a certain style to pull. Like, for an example, if we look to Morozov, we can already expect from him to try hooking his opponents in every round 1 of his matches. While, if we look to another puller, like Devon for an example, the approach is totally different. So, you know, everybody in arm wrestling seems to have their particular style of pulling. And when we look to Brian Shaw, it goes without saying that he seems like he's going to be a giant press puller just by looking at his past pulls. And that style really seemed to fit him since he has a gigantic tricep and overall upper body strength that can indeed help once he gets behind his shoulder. But you know, one of the biggest topics when Brian came around the sport was certainly about a possibility for a future match against Levan. And the first thing that comes to mind when it comes to comparing them is the hand and wrist difference. Like, Levan has achieved a size of hand and wrist that it almost seems to be uncrackable. But when thinking about that, I remembered there was a certain person who has popped up into the arm wrestling world with claims that he could go for Levan, since he has beaten the best in Russia, including Vitaly, and I'm talking about Zaur Paisalayev. And if we look to Zaur, we'll see that he does not have any wrist or hand like Levan does. But even without it, his top roll is one of the most unique, because he climbs high into his opponent's hand, and after it, he literally does a squat, which apparently helps with the momentum to finish his opponent. You know, obviously, if I were Brian, I would take a good look at all of the top pullers in the world to choose the best lifts and ways to pull. But just the fact that Zaur uses a squat to have his body weight enhancing his top roll just makes me wonder what would happen if Brian would do the same, having in mind that Brian is also pretty hardcore at squatting himself. But what about you guys? Which other style do you think Brian should try learning? Leave down in the comments, and thank you so much for watching.